Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Kamler. Our next guest is, without a doubt, one of the most original, daring, authentic, and hilarious comedians out there right now. And her one-woman show... You couldn't let me get through it.
I'm so sorry.
And her one-woman show just goes further to prove that. It's called Get On Your Knees. And I'm not sure if you can tell by the title, but it is about oral sex. And it began its run at the Cherry Lane, and due to its success, it is now moving to New York City's Lucy Lortel Theater for another run starting December 14th. Please welcome the wonderful Jacqueline Novak. Let's hear it.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I interrupted you during the intro because
I loved it.
I think I'm uncomfortable with a compliment, with receiving a compliment with just silence and staring at you. Like, that seems insane.
Right. Otherwise, you'd just be going like,
Even though it's an intro and like, it would be very weird if you were incredibly neutral about me. Like, if it were just like, here she is. But I still like had to pipe in with a little laugh.
I want to do intros like that from now on.
Yeah.
Here she is.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I'm always shocked. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. This is very nice.
Congratulations on the show. I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah.
As we have come to terms with backstage.
Yes,
I have not seen the show in the green room, but I am so excited. It's been on my radar. You as a comedian have been on my radar for a very long time.
Thanks.
I remember seeing you around the time that I first moved to New York, when you were doing... I would see you at Big Terrific sometimes, or at Invite Them Up every now and then.
The Rafifi days,
Rafifi days, you were just kind of starting out at that time, and it's amazing to see you at this point doing this one-woman show where it feels like everything you've been trying to do has crystallized into this moment.
God, that sounds great.
Does it feel like that?
I think so. I think it does feel like that. I mean, crystallization always sounds a little scary because it's like...
Crack?
It sounds like perfection. No, it sounds like perfection. But yeah, I've been at it a while in New York, and then I moved to LA, and then shortly thereafter set out to do this run here. So it's sort of this weird leave New York to come back to New York thing.
Had you already been working on the show when you moved out to LA?
I had, and maybe it was maybe I was like trying to get New York to chase me. Like, I don't know, maybe it was like an unconscious strategy.
I should do that.
I feel like a lot of people leave New York hoping to be called back, and then the city forgets. But
most are not called back.
Yeah. They let you go. They let us
toil in meetings.
They let you in and they let you out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been in New York a while, other than that, and I remember those were good days, those Rafifi days. Before Rafifi closed, it kind of really felt like this comedy scene, and then it kind of felt like when that place closed, no one else picked up the slack.
Well,
right?
It felt like this scene kind of came together one night a week or a month, however much it was, in that place.
Yeah.
And you would have someone who had just moved there and was starting out.
Yeah.
You would also have basically the person who was about to break big in that moment.
God, it's so romantic.
Run the gamut. It sounds romantic, but it was kind of cool.
It felt that way, though, yeah.
When it closed, it felt like the scene just kind of like dispersed into different places all over.
Exactly.
All over.
Yeah. And it seems like a venue shouldn't have that kind of power. Like it seems like, surely we can move the experience to another bar. Yeah. And then sometimes those things just don't. It just doesn't. It's just a time, moment in time.
There's comedy shows all across the city.
Of course,
and alt comedy shows all across the city. But there isn't this like one place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always felt like it was a, there was always, this place is going to be the next Rafifi.
Never happens.
And it never, or you go, my show's going to be the next Invite Them Up. And it's like, have we, it's been 10 years, have we had one yet? This is rude. I feel like I'm just sort of generally throwing the entire scene like under the bus or something. But
well, I think it also has to do this is turning into like an
inside
history podcast. Yeah. But and we'll close it after you say whatever I say.
Thank you.
But it does feel like there was also that period of time where there was a series of alt comedians, for lack of a better way to put it, who were like not super famous yet and hadn't gone, but there was a scene around them where people thought that they were famous and felt that they were famous, and they hadn't done Alvin and the Chipmunks yet or something, that had gotten them a lot of money, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, like Cross was recording his albums.
Yes.
And so it still felt very localized.
No, it was, absolutely. I mean, it was very romantic. How do you get that going again?
I don't think
maybe it's just though. Maybe it is. Maybe you can't see it till later.
We're just like nostalgic for a period of time that like all New Yorkers are. They're just always nostalgic for the past. Like it was so much better when heroin people dying on the street. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. If it was the time that you arrived in the city.
with wide eyes.
With wide eyes, and it's just.
Does it feel like this show, like you've been doing stand-up for a long time, so how did it become a one-woman show versus a stand-up special?
How did that happen? Let's see. Well, I went to Edinburgh Fringe Festival to get stage time, and to work on my hour. That was kind of in my mind how I was thinking about, which is not what they want you to do. They want you to arrive with a finished show, so it was like almost like a artificial deadline. So it was like, all right, well, let's try to finish the show before I get there, and it's reviewed as a show there. That's the other thing. So that already put it
had
into,
Early come on at that time as well?
No, he was just a friend and a very good friend, and he had seen me working on it a bit in New York. So it was his first phase of kind of working on it with knowing that it would be reviewed as a show at this festival versus just, I don't know, trying to get people to want to put my hour on television or something. So it sort of started there, and then I just kept putting it up sort of independently. And then Mike Birbiglia, who's always supported me in 1,000 ways with stand-up over the years, sort of got behind it as a producer and said we should mount it as a theater production. So it's really, I mean, that's it's a simple answer, but he's done that. He made that kind of took his comedy and his stand-up and put it up in the theater world, and so him saying that was really what kind of gave me the ability to do it, and him literally producing it.
What was the difference for you between it being a stand-up special and it being a theater production?
Yeah. Two main things. One, the personal experience of having a team around me that in order to put up a show in a theater versus going to a comedy club for a weekend and you're slotted in as the performer, but everyone else is already this just sort of every piece of it, just really just the team of the whole thing, and it's being our show, even though it's just me up there. I get all the glory, but get to feel like I'm part of a team too. So that has been really positive and nice. And then in terms of kind of the work itself, I feel like there's a bit more room when you're presenting it as a show. There's a little more room to, for lack of a better way of saying it, take yourself a little seriously, which I always enjoy.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
you like drama.
yeah, I think so. That's sort of how I weirdly, I don't know. That's like my way into comedy or something.
Well, your comedy's always been, I could be
grim.
Wrong. I would say hyper personal.
Yeah.
And in a sense that you are interested in talking about maybe what's grim about what's happening in your life, and not necessarily like softening it with an easy punchline. Maybe the punchline is just that it's grim.
Totally. I definitely would prefer a grim punchline, I think, to like let's soften it.
Yeah.
I prefer the sort of catharsis version of laughter, probably to well, let's make this thing light. I don't know. Yeah, light. I don't know what that means. I mean, I always found it when I first started stand up, the prospect of, quote, trying to be funny, just totally heinous. Like the second you're trying, it's going to be bad. At least for me, I knew it would be deeply self-conscious, and like there would be nothing funny about me trying to be funny. So my only way in kind of was to go, well, if I just pursue things that I think are sort of surprising and true, maybe those will happen to be funny, which is sort of a weird, sounds like a formula or something, but I just, it
more of a
allowed
formula,
it to be,
I think, to be like, this is something that I think is interesting. What's the angle that is a joke on it?
Right.
That's more of a formula in a way. While it still takes a lot of talent and practice to be good at that. Do you feel like you were doing something different where it was like, this happened and this is odd, and I in terms of my actual, from starting stand-up day one throughout, I would say I tried everything in terms of every version of, certainly not above the concept of a formula at all. Like, I don't want to paint it as like I transcribed, Bigger and Blacker. And I feel like I'm always like bringing this up, like I'm so proud of it or something, but it's like, I transcribed Skanks for the Memories and like studied them in the most sort of nerd fashion. And,
read books that include things about absolute formulas for joke, like all of it, like any version of learning about and trying to understand and figure out, like, one, what is stand-up, what makes something funny, all those things. So, like, and if there was a formula, like, I'd use it, you know? But I think saying, you know, this thing is interesting, what's the funny angle on it? The problem for me there is that what might be a funny angle on it, to me, like, it might not be authentic to me.
Yeah.
I feel like that you see it when people are starting out at open mics. It's sort of, they're figuring out how a joke works, or they're figuring out, you know, this isn't a funny angle. I'm doing this a lot, but I feel like there was a period 10 years ago where everyone decided to stop doing air quotes, and I have continued. Like,
you will not let it die.
I think it's good. It's useful. What was I saying? I'm off the Adderall. That's another fact. We fly free. That helped me, actually, I think.
Did it really?
Now.
When did you get off the Adderall?
I mean, it's been like a good 9 years now. I talk about it like it was last week. And that's part of being off the Adderall. It's the, you know, just time flies.
You were talking about how in open mics, people generally are like trying to understand what the joke, how to craft a joke,
right?
Which is true. Open mics, you go to open mics and you have like 3 to 5 minutes, and so therefore everybody's being like, and then this is this. And
yes.
Like, everything is set up. There's no room for a comedian to get up there and explore or like kind of tell a story that meanders and figure it out.
I mean, I think some are actually probably smart to use it that way if they can, but like there's definitely no one route to, you know, stand up, right? And being good at stand up. So it's like kind of like any version at the open mic, anything's like acceptable and potentially useful, you know? Like I always feel like people always think that when they see someone just starting out who's, let's say, not doing very well, like, you know, not getting laughs or whatever, and they're bad in the same way they were bad when they started, they always think that person has a chance. Like they're like, well, you know, they could be something. I could see it. I could tell they're a writer. They're a good writer, just like I was. You know, they're like, oh look, they're nervous on stage. You know, like, oh, I was that too, and now I'm fantastic. And then
someone do that with you?
I just see, I feel like I see it more when I know what the person's like and what they were like when they started. And so they see the same path for other people, and they're like, meanwhile, you know, then they see someone else who, let's say, is totally comfortable on stage, but the writing isn't, you know, there. And that wasn't their path. They're like, they're hopeless. You know, and it's like, no, everyone can be bad starting out in different ways. And like, there's no...
I think that specific example is like writers responding to people with charisma, though.
Oh yeah, no,
like that's mostly what that is.
It is. I'm like, is it the other way? I feel like though, a writer, right? Yeah. Yes.
Like, oh, he's the worst. He's comfortable on stage.
Yeah,
Girls are looking at him. Get him out of there.
He'll never have an idea. Like it's impossible for someone with charisma to have a thought. And it's like, no, they just hadn't quite found their, you know,
their voice, so
to speak. Which is another question. I don't even know if I, you know, believe in. But sorry, this is out of control. I'm going to sit on it.
Believe in.
Yeah.
That is what you air quoted. So does that mean that you don't believe in it?
I think, well, because sometimes in the conversational, you know, thing that's happening here, otherwise known as a conversation, I want to have rapport.
Way to put it, the conversational thing that's happening here, because it's not a real conversation. I mean, as much as I'm trying very hard to make it a real conversation,
it is.
Not necessarily.
I think it's real on my part. I feel like I am not delivering for the crowd enough. Like I'm just like it's just my true, just like. Wait, no, I did have a point that I wanted to make. Oh yeah, but our conversation, right? So in an effort to have, you know, rapport, I feel like I am at risk of saying like, yeah, after you say something and then later being like, I said yeah to, you know, something about comedians and their voices, and I'm like, oh God, what if it's not what I stand by? And that's, you know, where this comes in. It starts like flying through the sky above my legs, and
I just love that, like, your response. You're worried about going to me as I talk. Like
I'll be quoted.
You're just listening to me going, don't say don't say yeah.
Well, it's a risk though. It's a risk. You know, because you know what I have noticed occasionally in a print interview.
You don't print the air quotes.
It hugely is a question. Actually, in those I have started saying quote unquote a little bit. which what even is that? I mean, is that even right? Anyway, like
right, like quote unquote
trying to ensure.
believing.
Or saying, or if I say something with like sarcasm, having to follow it up with almost like a verbal cue that was sarcastic. There's no press is hell.
Yes, I'd
right?
imagine. Yes.
I mean, there's no way
I feel
through.
bad for
You're
all
gonna
of you when you come in here.
I mean, no. I mean, I'm saying that as a, I'm thrilled to be here. Obviously, okay.
I appreciate that, but I will say that like all of the sympathy is on my, is for people when they're doing press. It's a weird thing to have to do.
And it's a private joke to myself because I'm saying press is hell, like in order to imply that it's just like been years and years of me doing a lot of press, and like that's the other private joke with
the globe traveling you did for the Marvel movie that you had to do. Yeah,
I always think about Julia Roberts doing press in what's the movie where she's an actress and she is
Must Love Serendipity? Is that it?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to say Love Actually because of all the reasons. But yeah, remember when she's doing press and it's like intense? That was always what I thought it would be.
That is that period of time where writers believed that like something could happen while doing press and an actor or actress would just spill it all.
Yes.
It's like, no.
Yes.
That just would not happen.
Although there are a few, I feel like on YouTube, a few sort of like meltdowns.
That's true.
This is.
They were actual meltdowns.
I'm unhinged. This is a.
The quote has become unhinged.
I mean, I'd rather
swinging now.
I mean, something needs to happen here. Like, this is heinous. You know why? I've called it out, and now I'm still doing it. That's a nightmare. You know what I mean?
Do you want to talk about
self-awareness? Can't always save you.
Do you want to talk about blowjobs?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, right. The show is about blowjobs, okay? And that was real. Like, you probably think this is a joke, and I'm like, now it's a bit. No, I'm gonna sit on my hand.
I'm excited for when you start going like this on the mic.
Oh, that actually would have some dignity to it. I feel like. What should we tell them? We want people to buy tickets for the winter run.
Yes.
I mean, that's my aim, right?
Yeah.
Well,
without even knowing that it's about blowjobs, you should buy tickets because, as you've seen, she's incredibly funny and authentic, and so therefore you should see it. But it's
authentic
also about blowjobs. You don't like authentic?
No, I absolutely do. I was just assessing my performance thus far here and thinking, I've been authentic. That's true. But I've absolutely not been worried about like convincing anyone I'm funny, and I think it shows.
I think people have been laughing. Okay, so tell me how did the whole show start? What made you find the through line, the theme of oral sex, or want to talk about oral sex?
Let's see. Well, I had a bunch of sort of material about penises, basically, and I say basically because I'm not actually that interested in penises as subject
heinous.
Matter. You think?
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
A flaccid penis is fairly heinous.
Yeah.
Like they just don't belong.
Erect isn't great either. I mean,
erect is vaguely threatening, which is not good. But at the same time, erect is at least like purposeful and like intense.
No, yeah.
And like showcasing something.
Definitely.
A flaccid penis is just kind of like put that fucking thing away.
No.
Like who? Like
absolutely, and this is a big theme in the show. So there's a lot of questions about the penis. And then I had written this essay in college that was, moderately well received in my writing workshop, including about blowjobs and kind of like the first time I heard about a blowjob and, what my initial impressions were when I was in middle school, and then kind of my experiences and anxieties around it, kind of through the years, right? So I'd sort of thought about that at an earlier point in my life, and then I was doing this kind of penis stand-up material, basically, and then I sort of wanted to weave the two together and felt like I could in the context of a one-woman show, slash stand-up, because who cares about the categories in the end, right? I mean,
it doesn't matter if it's good.
Yeah.
Category doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Hopefully we transcend all categories, and so threading those two things together, and the essay was me being a writer and doing creative nonfiction and thinking about my life in this kind of way and being poetic and all this kind of nonsense. And then there's this stand-up that's fairly, lowbrow. And sort of, so I guess that's really what it was. It was like weaving these two parts of myself, the more, literary sort of part of myself that I like to use and show, but also make fun of a little because it's a little ridiculous. And so it was kind of weaving those two things, I think. And that's, yeah.
Where did your initial, and I guess we don't want to give too much away when it comes to the show, but where did your initial interest in oral sex come from? What triggered that kind of fascination? Outside of, I mean, I guess maybe it's just the juvenile fascination that we all have when we're growing up, which is like, what will it be like?
Yeah.
If,
I heard about it from a friend's older sister, older sister's friend, and was kind of just shocked that it was a thing at all. And I didn't understand how it even could work, given the fact that there's teeth in the mouth. And so I was truly kind of shocked by the concept of it. And then I feel like I spent a couple of years, heading towards and into high school, thinking about it as this thing that maybe I would be expected to do in the context of a heterosexual relationship, and trying to make sense of it, and trying to imagine it not seeming totally silly, and so then I started to poeticize it a little bit, to think about, well, before there was a term blowjob, like how did the blowjob come about? Is the blowjob inherently crass? Or is it just that the term blowjob has a sound to it that just sounds, blowjob, So it's just this sort of question, and then it's just sort of been this endless question that, but yeah, I think it was the initial shock of that's even a thing. I was shocked by all the sex acts, I think.
Yeah, who wasn't? I mean,
like literally all of them, including, basic penetration. I didn't know that was even a thing. I like literally learned it in sex ed. I thought
in 7th or 8th grade?
I literally thought that when they were teaching how,
God, I have to be honest with you. I can't imagine what it must have felt like to learn that in a classroom, because I knew, like, we had all talked about it.
I know.
When it came up, we were like, ha, made fun of it. If I was sitting there, I would have felt so alone.
I know. And it's not like I didn't have a sheltered, upbringing. Like, I watched Dirty Dancing at age 5, it was my first R-rated movie.
It's not R-rated movie. It's like
maybe I'm thinking of Wildcats. I watched both. But anyway.
It's Wildcats.
It's a great movie. It's
not wild things.
No. Wildcats is not. Has anyone here seen Wildcats with I can't pull it up right now. I literally can't pull up the name of the actress right now. I don't know why I just kind of in my mind didn't fully understand like the puzzle piece of penetration. I thought it was more like a hot dog lying between the bun.
The bun.
The labial bun. Like, I think I thought it was like there at like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think I thought there was almost like a magnetic kind of like, literally like clicking in, like kind of like, if you put two magnets in it, like, for whatever reason.
And just sort of like laying there, like while it took place, like not,
if you're pouring
sex or anything, just sort of like a.
Yeah, I think I thought it was more of just a, not a grinding action. Well, I guess the grind, that could be there too. But, I guess, like, arguably the concept of milking a penis, which is essentially what's happening with the penetrative act, the futile sort of back and forth.
Sorry, I agreed with you too emphatically there. I don't know why that happened.
Rapport.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what you're worried about.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it doesn't make sense until you really understand, like, that a penis requires that stimulation to, get the necessary fluids for procreation out of it, right? Like, you don't really get that early. I feel like they don't get into that. I feel like they don't in the early sex ed say like, and the back and forth action creates pleasure for the man that leads to a, you know what I mean?
No, because they're too scared to get. They
say like it goes in. They try to make it like it's a insertion, a delivery, and a retreat. They don't say and the headboard is knocking against the wall or whatever. Like they don't emphasize the banging aspect of that's like
The
pretty much
the violent act of sex that takes place.
Yeah, right?
The banging.
And so because I thought it was just kind of like a two parts coming together for this insertion to happen. In my mind, I didn't think that, if I were going to pour orange juice into a glass, that I would have to stick the entire body of the orange juice container into the glass to make sure that it hits the bottom of the glass, go right to the edge.
Did they even talk about blowjobs in the sex ed? I don't remember blowjobs in sex ed.
I don't think so.
That was something that's like, you guys go figure that out on your own.
Yeah, if you're going to, and that's part
There's
of the
no
sort of the
procreative
question.
aspect to it,
Right.
so like, we don't teach it. Yeah.
Which, it's lame.
I mean,
It's lame to act like we're just here talking about procreation, right?
The whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, arguably the kids need more education around the other things because it's more nebulous territory, the other acts.
True, and on a serious note, they're only getting the education about it from movies and from pornography.
Yeah.
And so therefore there is like an expectation and there is an idea about it that isn't necessarily
the
case.
Did you experience much pornography? It's another thing I oddly missed. And still, I say this only because I think it's vaguely like surprising, but like I've seen no pornography.
In your life?
Yeah, I've seen like 30 seconds tops.
God, lucky you.
And got bored and went back to Celebrity Ghost Story. Real story. Are you shocked?
Really? I am shocked. I mean, but at the same time, I'm not that shocked. I mean, most women that I talk to either don't want to talk about it or it is far less obsession than most men. Most men are like,
right.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like every woman I know that talks about it. I mean, I guess it's a issue of how one reports on oneself. But I just feel like I missed out. I feel like they all watch porn,
right?
And enjoy it. And
really?
I do feel a little bit like I'm corny for not.
What happened when you tried to watch?
Literally, a friend sent it to me. Like I was like, I don't watch porn. I've never sought out porn. I don't know. She's like, you probably saw the wrong things. And again, I'm like, I've seen nothing except for like clips that are in another movie as like a joke. And she's like, you're probably watching the wrong thing. Here, I'll send you like some real quality stuff. And
there's no such thing.
Yeah, some high end kind of, and sent it to me, and I was like bored and then grossed out.
Interesting.
I think I'm a more the sheer bodily acts, I don't find that interesting. Which is why, it's like, oh, your show's about blowjobs. It's like, yeah, but in a very weird cerebral way.
Right, you're not talking about, or maybe you are a little bit,
right,
the specific details or act of like inserting a penis into the mouth. I'm sure there's
other
a little
than
bit
the
of
concerns like around teeth, and that sort of thing.
Mostly the teeth issue.
Yeah, that's a big issue in the show. I will tell you no more.
Like a through line from beginning to end.
Yes, literally. Yeah.
So when you started doing the show, you started previewing the show for friends. Did you feel like you had something special? Did something feel different about it?
I think I was kind of taking a big swing in terms of, I've been doing stand-up a long time and had some success, in terms of, okay, got to go on TV and do this or that.
You've been on The Tonight Show, right?
Yeah, I think before this show, I'd done The Tonight Show and Corden and done a thing for Comedy Central. But, almost like, all right, what are we really doing here? Like, have we begun yet? The real work. And I think it was just like a big swing, kind of like, what's the kind of work I would do if I were, at the top and could do anything, and could make it, what would my special be if it was an hour special and someone was offering me that hour special? Well, let's do that before anyone's offering it. Let's just put it together. And, when I first started stand-up, literally I read a thing in The Artist's Way that was like, what would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail, and I never considered stand-up before that because
What did you consider before that?
I wanted to be Paul Thomas Anderson.
Don't we all?
Just writing, just generally writing and filmmaking.
How big of an impact did Magnolia have on you at 15?
I mean, Boogie Nights was,
Same.
my favorite, and Magnolia certainly delivered on. It was an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like in terms of the actors and seeing all the actors, and great Tom Cruise role.
Maybe arguably the best Tom Cruise.
I think so, right?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Respect the cock.
Yeah.
That's in the movie, guys.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the movie.
Tame the cunt.
Yeah. I left that one for you.
Yeah.
I let you pick that one.
I didn't think you would have steered us away. But so, right. So I considered stand-up, and when I would picture stand-up, I would picture myself doing it badly, and so why would I want to do that? And so then it was like, well, if I knew I couldn't fail, then I tried to picture myself doing it and people liking it, and I was like, I guess that's a possibility. Like, I guess me being me could, like, maybe that, and then, so I think, which is all to say that I think this show is the most just me being me, not really hiding all the parts of me that, the obnoxious literary parts of me, or the hyper enthusiastic parts of me, all the things that have always felt like they don't quite belong or are not super encouraged in stand-up or something. All the things that I thought wouldn't do well in the stand-up world, and that I've been like trying to fix or avoid or only sprinkle into my stand-up. I feel like in the show, it's just like, forget it. Let's just put it all in.
Oh, that's so interesting, though, the hyper literary aspect of you that doesn't feel comfortable in the stand-up world, because no matter how much we admire stand-up and how much it's become beloved at this point. I mean, it's always been beloved, but as of the last 10 or so years, it's become, I think, even more so beloved. And yet there's still this element that it has to be, in some respects, for the masses.
Right.
It's still jokes, and jokes have to land for everybody. And so therefore, if you get up on stage and you start talking about Didion or whatever, or making some sort of reference to your favorite
Totally.
author,
references are a huge question, I think, in stand-up.
Yeah.
Like,
because then it's
whether or
suddenly
not to...
like, well, I can't make this reference because not everybody's going to get it.
Yeah.
So if I do make it, I have to explain it, and then I'm just going to lose them because there's jokes in that explanation.
Absolutely. And in the end of my show, there's a bunch of references that I don't explain. And it's totally the opposite of something I've done in my stand-up in the past. I've always had that kind of mindset of, so it is kind of this weird mix. But one thing I do think is interesting about references is sometimes when you don't know the references, you can still enjoy them. You know they're references, and there's something in them, and sometimes that's the way that then you're led to those original materials. Like, I feel like, I don't know, this is a corny example, but like, in like La Vie Boheme and Rent. It's like a bunch of references. Like some of them I'm like, all right, I gotta go look that one up. Like I'm singing the lyric or I'm singing it wrong. I finally figure out, and then I'm like, all right, I need to go know what that is. So I feel like there's like a treasure hunt of references in other songs. It's like participating in the reference
or going back
journey.
To your reference to PTA when you were young. I mean, part of the love of those things for me was that they were just references to other great movies.
Yes.
And so therefore I was like, oh, who's Robert Altman? Who is Francois Truffaut? And who's Robert Downey Sr.? Like, I'll go do all this.
Yes. Totally. It's such a satisfying feeling to even go one step behind the work. And it leads you. It's like a great way to narrate it becomes its own like journey.
Do you think people still, maybe this is too tangential.
Yeah, never.
But do you think people still get that? Because there was a sense like when I was that age and I would read a magazine that had those references and then I had to go to a video store.
Right. I
had to talk to somebody. I had to find them. And then I would go home.
Right.
There was internet, but there wasn't as much use of it. Whereas now, I hate sounding like an old man.
Yeah,
this sense
the speed of it is...
Yeah, the speed of it. You don't necessarily have to listen to the whole song or watch the whole movie. You could watch a clip of the movie on YouTube and sort of get the idea, or the clip of the scene that they're referencing and get the idea, rather than having to sit through all of Shoot the Piano Player and understand what Truffaut was doing.
Yeah, I think you have to really take it on yourself now a bit more, because you can get the you can fake that kind of knowledge.
You can live in
with
Cliff
a couple.
Notes.
Yeah, which has some. I feel like you can move faster.
Yeah.
And jump, and maybe you don't sit. You don't drive to the video store and watch a movie that may or may not be relevant to you. I think you could move more steps. If I were gonna put a positive spin on it, it'd be like, instead of this thing leading you to B, it's like, okay, you go A, you look online, you go B, C, D, E, and then you go to the video store for G, and you've skipped some steps, but I feel like people still do deep dives when they find the thing they like. So you might find your way to your own really specific taste faster, which is nice.
Ends up just being a 9/11 truther video on YouTube.
It's true. A lot of all roads lie.
All roads
lead to the
to alt-right conspiracy videos.
Oh, so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A to B to C to Jordan Peterson. Oh, okay.
I am describing how the nation is falling, under the guise of positive spin.
I think we have time for a couple questions from the audience. Should we take some? Hi, you have a microphone. Hi.
Yes, I do. I was wondering what the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you while performing stand-up is.
Let me think about that. Yeah, what's the most embarrassing thing that's happened? I think nothing. There's no one specific coming to mind, and arguably it would be like, oh, every time you're bombing, but that's just part of stand-up, so it's not that. I think the most embarrassing is times when I've become actively mad at an audience member. It's just, particularly if someone in the front row is doing something rude, whatever it is, if you react to them, the rest of the crowd doesn't even know what you're reacting to. They probably didn't hear them. And so I feel like a couple times I'm very embarrassed when I'm actually made mad for real on stage. Like, to me, that's like, come on, like, hold it together, woman.
I meant to ask you. You said you were
not
reading.
Juicy. It's not a juicy one. I'm like, oh, it was the time I was wearing white pants and my period. But that didn't happen.
You said that you read The Artist's Way, and there was this mention of do something that what was it that you
if you knew you wouldn't fail, what would you do?
Right. How did it go? How did the first time you went up go?
The first time I went up was okay. I mean, it was an open mic in a Best Western in Tysons Corner, Virginia. I was in college. I went with a friend who also wanted to give it a shot. I threw up on the way there, or when I arrived. I mean, it's comforting almost to look back on that, because like it's weird, but it is that scary, I think. Maybe not for everyone, but I think if you care at all about it and you're thinking about doing stand-up, I don't know. I can't imagine falling into stand-up without immense fear at the top.
Yeah.
I just, and it's kind of a blur. I had a few ideas. I moved through them, very quickly, and made some sort of, and got out of there. Like it's just a memory of very bright lights. Me literally saying like, "Wow, it's bright up here," and going home. And I felt very guided because I was reading these. I think like Judy Carter's The Comedy Bible at the time, which is like, okay, so go to your open mic, like bring chapstick. Okay, it was very specific, and it was almost like, oh, I'm going to do the exercise at the end of chapter 7, and then come home. It's like, so you went to your first open mic, really a nerd's way in. I think, and I share all this because I think it's important to share unglamorous stories of artistic pursuit.
Agree.
Like it was an exercise in a self-help book that brought me here.
I think people should share those stories more so than they should share the stories of success.
Yeah.
Because usually when they share the stories of failure, it's like someone rejected me and I worked for another year and then we found somebody and now I do it. And it's like, well, what did you do for that? You failed for another year. So what was happening during that? What did that feel like?
Totally.
Yeah.
No, you always want to hear it. I mean, everything always gets simplified in the end, and fair enough, but I at least the unglamorous ways into, I read that in a book and I tried it. It's like, I just think it's important to hear so that other people aren't ashamed to go get a stupid book out of the library. And it's more people's story than you hear, I feel like.
When you moved to New York to start doing stand-up, where were you in your pursuit of it, and how were you feeling about it?
Because I was in college when I decided I wanted to do stand-up, so I started like my junior year in college attempting in DC at the time. It was like my intention was like move to New York and immediately, take off. And what is this, 13 years later? I don't know, longer than that. It was like, oh, I'm just gonna go really hard and make it happen right away. And it's just there's no clear path, and because there's no clear path, it's hard to imagine that path unfolding over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like wanting something to happen now for 15 years or whatever. I feel, for me, that kind of feeling. And I keep changing the number because I truly don't know. Like, I've sort of lost track again of time.
I thought you were trying to mask your age.
No.
13, 15, 12, 10.
No. I mean, I guess I
No, I didn't know.
I generally actually, and I actually don't do a lot of like age material, or like I'm blah, blah, blah now, because I feel like it bums other people out about their own lives. Like, I'm always bummed out, like in reality television shows, it was always like says the person's name and their age, and I'm just like, it just always leads to comparison, like just like, oh, where are they in their life? Am I there by that age? Am I, like, you're annoyed either way. It's like, I don't know. Like, I've never been psyched to hear someone's age.
This goes back to Paul Thomas Anderson for me, because he made Boogie Nights when he was 26.
Yes.
27 made.
And I remember like he got final cut.
At 30.
Yeah. Which was like a
27.
thing. Yeah.
And whenever I read that, or whenever I was like, I was past those ages, I was like, motherfucker.
No, exactly. And you just, you have to, you have to, what I have always said, because I'm like, well, who knows what's going to happen? Let's say the thing I really want to do, let's say I don't make a film or something until I'm, 93. It's like, well, then I'm the example for someone that says, so-and-so didn't make their first film till they're 93. It's like, be the example for someone else. Give someone, like, so, you know what I mean? Versus worrying about not getting it by Paul Thomas Anderson time. I feel like it's like you're widening the, you're widening the margin for future people, which is a nice thing. So the later the better in that way.
I agree. One more question.
Hi, we have a question from our site. Is there a female comedian that has served as like your biggest inspiration or role model?
Damn, it's a good question. I wish I had a really strong answer. Trying to think, because I did reference like 2 men earlier. And it's like so disgusting. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Traitor.
I can't land on one because this is a corny answer, but I truly, the entire spectrum from current people working and people through the past, it's like they're all part of the journey. So it's, I'm like, I don't have a great answer for that. But I'll think about it and I'll tweet one tonight. Is that fair? Because I want to get that right. I want to
Look
think
out
about
for
that
her
right.
Twitter tonight.
I'm like all of them, but there is some truth in that. Like when I first started out, I remember watching Sarah Silverman, and then quickly deciding not to watch any Sarah Silverman because I was like, I just thought it was so funny, and because she was this woman that I admired, I was like, she's the only person in my mind right now as I'm thinking about myself pursuing stand-up that I was like, it's going to be all-consuming, and I'm just going to be trying to be her. Mm-hmm. So there's an interesting... I got to think about it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
This goes right back to the invite them up talk. She was one of the people right around that time that were like famous for a small group of people.
Yeah.
Then she broke got really famous later.
I feel like she was pre that. I could be wrong. I feel like she was already huge then.
Oh, really?
I feel like, because I feel like her scene was the alternative scene that preceded that one, and then everyone thought that this scene
Agree.
was the
she
scene.
Would be like the headliner or the special
for
guest
sure.
that
Yeah.
invite them up.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she was like, Radio City yet or doing the, massive theater shows. Maybe she was.
But I just, she was incredibly funny, and so I sort of read a bunch of things about her at that time, but then also became aware of the the feeling of, oh, you know, then this person, it's going to affect me. And that's why I actually like pivoted my studying of stand-up towards people that sensibilities were nothing like mine.
Because you could
like
see
Dave
yourself.
Attell. So,
Right.
so I then like transcribed Dave Attell's Skanks for the Memories because that was nothing like what my material was like. So I could actually learn, I could study sort of the craft and the mechanics of it, and not confuse it with content. You know what I mean? Where I could
Sarah
confuse it with,
Silverman.
if I were studying a Sarah Silverman joke, which, you know, I did. And then we're trying to work on my own, the voice part would seep in, I think.
You could hear yourself sounding like her.
I knew
she has
that would
such a
happen.
Specific, unique voice
Yeah.
that people would recognize it.
And being a woman, and I could feel that would happen, so I actively avoided it.
Whereas no one would recognize a female Dave Attell.
Yeah, and there's a couple, there's like, I have one joke that I think is on a Comedy Central thing, where I'm like, to me, I'm secretly trying to, like, I think I'm Dave Attell when I say that one line. And
Did
it's
you ever
like,
tell Dave Attell that?
I feel like I've run into him over the years. Like every 7 years, I reintroduce myself, and I don't mean that like rude to him. Like he shouldn't remember me 7 years later. I just mean like I reintroduce myself, tell him that I transcribed Skanks for the Memories, tell him how important it was to me. Like I'm like I'll probably do it till death.
Jacqueline, I can't wait to see the show.
Yeah,
I'm so excited to see it.
I'm excited to have you.
It starts on December 14th to January 26th at the Lucille Lortel Theater. Get tickets. I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there on the 14th or the 15th, one of
Great.
those early nights, standing and cheering through the whole show.
Absolutely, to a point of distraction.
Yes, not waiting till the end to standing ovation you from
Thank
beginning
you.
to end.
No, someone's got to start it.
You're going to have to talk over me the whole time.
I'd be honored.
Jacqueline Novak, everybody.
Thanks so much.